What's up everybody? Welcome to today's video. We're going to be covering Smolov Jr. today, which is a typical powerlifting routine, Russian powerlifting routine that derives from Smolov. There's some differences between Smolov and Smolov Jr. For instance, Smolov is typically a 13-week squat program, whereas Smolov Jr. is a 3-week bench press program. Let's talk about a general overview of what Smolov Jr. is. Smolov Jr. is a routine specifically designed to increase your bench press. It is not unheard of for people to increase their bench press by 30 pounds or more to their 1 rep max after completing a cycle of Smolov Jr. And so it's been my personal experience after I've run Smolov Jr. where I have noticed at least a 25 to 30 pound increase in my bench press. And we're going to get into some more details of the specific routine and why that might be the case. But just note that this is a very high frequency, high volume routine. So with that said, let's jump into it. Here is the trusty whiteboard. Got a breakdown of what the traditional Smolov Jr. routine would look like. Just to note up here at the top, I do have bench, squat, and deadlift listed, but this is traditionally just a bench press routine, but I'm going to come back and talk about that in just a moment. So I've got the breakdown of how it would look for the first week. And something to note too, this is going to have you bench press every other day. So it's a very high frequency routine for, again, someone who's looking to specifically build up one muscle group, one body part. I think whatever muscle group, whatever compound movement is your weakest, you would get a lot of benefit from doing Smolov Jr. This is what week 1 of Smolov Jr. would look like. Starting off Monday, you do 6 sets of 6 reps on bench press. We're just going to talk about bench press for the moment. At 70% of your 1 rep max. Then Wednesday, you do 7 sets of 5 at 75% of your 1 rep max. So we're increasing the amount of weight, decreasing the amount of reps, but increasing the amount of sets. Then Friday, 8 sets of 4 at 80% of your 1 rep max. And Sunday, we're going all the way up to 10 sets of 3 at 85% of your 1 rep max. Traditional Smolov Jr., I want to say, would have you do your 10 sets of 3 on Saturday, the day after you just did your 8 sets of 4. I don't recommend that. I'm one of those people that likes to make sure you have plenty of rest and plenty of time for your muscles to recover before you get in some really intense workouts. And I think the risk of injury is way too high, especially when you're following this program, which, like I said, is more of a powerlifting type of routine. So if you're not someone who's used to lifting heavy, I don't want you to risk getting injured. Take those rest days. Also a note, an aside, when you're doing this program, since it is such high frequency, such high intensity, such high volume on a bench press, a squat, or a deadlift, make sure you're taking those rest days. Make sure you're letting your body recover, you're getting plenty of protein in, getting adequate nutrition, and you're getting plenty of sleep as well. You don't want to be doing hours and hours of cardio. You want to be in a caloric surplus, meaning you probably want to be bulking up when you're doing this routine. You don't want to do this when you're cutting. Now, also something to note, I have it listed as Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday on here, just to really emphasize and show you that it's every other day. And then in week 2, I'm not going to write it here on the whiteboard, but you would be starting the program again on Tuesday. So after you get your 10 sets of 3 in, take that Monday off. Okay, so then on Tuesday of week 2, we're going to be increasing the weight by 5 pounds. So we're going to do 6 by 6, and you're going to take your week 1 number of 70% of your 1 rep max and add 5 pounds to it. Same thing with Wednesday. We're going to take that week 1 number, add 5 pounds, and so on and so forth. So that way we're progressively overloading every single week. And then following the same thought process, week 3, the 3rd week of the program, you're going to take your week 2 number and add 5 pounds to it on every single one of these days. So effectively speaking, from week 1 to week 3, you're going to have increased the amount of weight you're using on each of these specific days by 10 total pounds. 5-pound increments each week. Okay, so here's how Smolov Jr. would actually look for each week, assuming, as you see at the top, a 250-pound 1 rep max. So for the first week, 70% of that 1 rep max rounds to about 175 pounds, 75% is the 185, and so on and so forth for 80 and 85%. Again, this is going to be every other day. So we take the number of sets times by the amount of reps times by the amount of weight, and that will get us to our total volume. So for week 1, we have a total volume of about 25,475 pounds. You'll notice as we add 5 pounds to each of the lifts for each of the days in week 2, we have increased not only the daily volume compared to week 1, but also the total weekly volume. And the same process follows in week 4. The total amount of volume is increasing because we're adding 5 pounds each week. So we're lifting with more intensity in terms of increasing the amount of weight that we're using each week. And since we're lifting every other week, you're getting that double bang for your buck by increasing the amount of frequency, increasing the amount of intensity, and overall training volume. So by going through this short little burst period of 3 weeks of higher intensity, higher volume, combined with adequate nutrition, you're going to notice some significant strength and muscle gains. You'll also notice I have weeks in parentheses because I made that slight change where we don't bench press on Friday and Saturday. We take that day off and we go ahead and do it on Sunday. That throws it off by about a day. And so it doesn't exactly come to a week cycle for each of these in terms of a Monday through Sunday program, but the effect is still the same. So it's still, generally speaking, a 3-week program. And by that, progressively overloading your muscles by adding slightly higher weights, slightly higher poundages, you're able to build up your chest muscles, you're able to build up your strength, and hopefully develop some solid muscle mass by the end of the routine. And that goes for squat or deadlift as well. I've seen some estimates that say you can jump and add 10 pounds, but I'm more conservative and I would recommend sticking closer to 5 pounds because trust me, you're doing a lot of extra work, and if you're not used to a high intensity routine like this, you're going to want to be conservative with your numbers. And even if you could do 10 pounds, 5 pounds is still going to give you good progress, get you used to the routine. And maybe if you try it again, you might be able to shoot for 10, but let's play it safe and let's make some consistent gains. While you're doing this, while you're doing Smolov Jr., and we'll just, again, go ahead and focus on the bench press, but this could just as well apply to squat or deadlift because I do think there's some benefit to doing both of those other exercises as well. You want to pick one exercise. So don't do bench, squat, and deadlift. Focus in on one exercise. So like I said earlier, pick a weak muscle group, pick a weak lift that you're on, and focus on improving that lift. You can always do squats next or deadlifts later. Okay, let's talk about how your training is going to be structured around bench press or squat or deadlift. So if you're doing Smolov Jr. for specifically bench press should is going to incorporate your chest. So meaning don't do any other exercises for your chest. We're going to be bench pressing every other day. So there's not any reason to be doing incline after this. There's not any reason to be doing dumbbell flies or anything else. Just stick to this alone. Trust me, this is going to be enough volume. This is going to be enough work. And it's going to be enough to really tax your muscles. And you're going to want to be making sure you're taking plenty of rest. And we don't want to overdo it with the muscles. Just get your body used to this and really focus on it because it's going to be tricky. By the time you get to that 10 sets of 3, you're going to be drained. Your central nervous system is going to be tired. You're going to feel tired and fried, basically. So give this a shot by itself. And now let's talk about your other training because if you're just doing bench press, that means you still have other muscles to train. So just to give you an example, if you're doing push-pull legs, this could be your push day. Okay, you don't need to be doing, like I said, bench press or chest or other exercises. You might need to do a little bit of accessory work for your shoulders or your triceps. And if you're going to be doing that, you could do that on the 6x6 day, for instance. I would say, push-pull legs, for example, has you working out each muscle group twice a week. So Monday could be your push day, where you're doing your bench press, and then you can go into a little bit of tricep or shoulder and tricep work on that day, but I would save the 10 sets of 3. If you're going to be doing anything at all on that day, make sure it's light. Maybe some abs, maybe some calves. This should be your main priority on that day. You could even do on your one of your off days legs, but again, you want to make sure you're resting adequately. Something you want to make sure as a bodybuilder too, someone who's trying to develop a well-rounded physique, don't skip out on the leg day just because you're bench pressing every other day. You might not see as much results in the 3-week period that you're doing this routine on legs or something like that because you're so physically taxed. But that said, don't skip it. Make sure you're still hitting all those muscle groups. Make sure you're still on point with your other training. But just know that you're able to take a step back away from doing all those other chest exercises, for instance. And then, like I said, down the road, if you're thinking long term, you can always run Smolov down the road for Smolov Jr. for your squat or your deadlift. So that way, maybe your bench press increases significantly, your squat maybe remains the same or goes up a little, then you can go ahead and focus in on the squat next to bring that sucker up and really overload your legs. So there's a lot of benefit to this. It's only a 3-week program, so it doesn't take a whole lot of time to accomplish, but it does take a lot of effort. You got to make sure when you're thinking about running Smolov Jr. also that you know that you're going to be able to do every other day of bench press. It's important that you stick to the plan and you don't detour off of what the plan says to do. So don't try to customize this and make it your own thing where you bench press 2 days in a row and then you're taking 3 days off and you're coming back. Do the program. Follow the program through for 3 weeks. Make sure you got 3 solid weeks of lifting in. And I'm telling you, if you're on point with your nutrition and you're training with intensity, following the rep ranges and everything like that, you're going to be sore, you're going to be tired, but by the end of it, you're going to notice some great strength gains. Basically, one of the big key takeaways from this is by doing an exercise more often and doing more sets, you're getting more practice on the exercise. And practice helps you to improve your form and helps you to get better at the lift. Not just from a strength perspective, not just from building increased muscle mass, but there is a big component of doing an exercise, especially compound movement, that's recognized by powerlifters is the technical side of the lift. How your form is actually played out based on your body mechanics and based on what's best for your body type. And so take the time to really practice the lift, really use that experience of lifting every single other day on the exercise in order to really hone in your skills and to develop your skill-based approach to doing bench press, for instance. A lot of bodybuilders lose sight of that, or they don't really focus on that because they're just so focused on progressively overloading the muscle, whereas powerlifters tend to be more focused on moving weight from point A to point B. But there is some carryover and some benefit to learning how to be a really technical lifter and how to improving your form. How improving your form, I should say, can actually add a lot of benefit to strengthening your bench press, and ultimately, by having a stronger bench press, for instance, you can really develop your chest muscles a lot more effectively. And so that's a really key takeaway, a really important point. If you have never tested your 1 rep max and you're not sure what it would be, do your best to estimate what you should lift at. Maybe you even have a practice week the first week where you're just kind of assessing. Again, start lighter and make sure you're able to complete the whole required number of sets and reps. It's always better to be conservative and be on the safe side than it is to lift too heavy, not be able to complete the reps, or risk hurting yourself. So practice it, and if you end up getting into Smolov Jr. and you do your bench press sets for the first week and everything feels great and it's just tremendous and it seems pretty easy, maybe you do add 10 pounds. So that's something you got to be sure to assess for yourself. But I always recommend you stay conservative, don't hurt yourself. It's better to be safe than sorry on things like this. You're going to see great benefits regardless of what you do. But if it is too easy, you're not sure what your 1 rep max is, you're not sure what 70% of your lift is, then you can increase the weight a little bit more than you would traditionally if you already knew what your 1 rep max was and what 70%, for instance, of your lift is. Moving aside from that, a couple other things you want to recognize why Smolov Jr. is so beneficial. I already touched on why it's beneficial in terms of giving you that extra experience with lifting, the practical sense of actually doing bench press more often and lift heavy weights. Going from being a bodybuilder where you're lifting moderately heavy weight, but nothing powerlifting style, to doing this, there's a transition you have to make. You have to really get in the right mindset, in the right zone to be doing 10 sets of 3 with 85% of your 1 rep max. So with that said, take plenty of time between your sets, especially on those days where you're doing those 10 sets of 3. You might end up having to take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes of rest towards the end of your sets because it just gets so heavy and you get so tired and you're not sure if you can complete it. Do the best that you can. Give yourself some slack and make sure you have plenty of time to just focus in on that. Now, let's talk about the longevity of doing this program. This is going to be difficult to do for a long period of time. This is not going to be your bread and butter of your exercise routine for most of the year. I would recommend at tops probably 3, maybe 4 times a year you could get away with doing Smolov Jr. It's not something you do every single week, every single month. It's something you use strategically. So for example, if you're bulking, you hit a plateau on bench press and you really just can't break through it, maybe try doing Smolov Jr. That might be a good way to bust through that plateau. Okay, so in summary, Smolov Jr. is a traditional powerlifting type of routine. Why it has a lot of benefit for bodybuilders or other kind of physique athletes is because one of the key drivers of increased muscle mass and strength is volume. Total number of sets times reps times by weight moved, basically. So by bench pressing, squatting, or deadlifting every other day, you've increased the amount of frequency on that lift, and you've increased the amount of volume overall because you're doing it more often. So it's a great way to progressively overload your muscles and a great way to really get extra experience from a practical standpoint with doing the exercise to get better at it. So that way you can continue to experience significant muscle and strength gains. So just because you're a bodybuilder doesn't mean you should not try Smolov Jr. I think there's a lot of application for it. I think there's a lot of benefit to it. So make sure you're not skimping out on your other exercises, on your legs if you're doing bench press, for instance, or vice versa. And make sure you're just keeping a long-term approach and a long-term mindset with this training program. This program is definitely designed to make pretty significant short-term gains in terms of strength. With that said, muscle building is a slow process and it can take longer, but this hopefully will help you to blast through a plateau if you're stuck on bench press, and provided your nutrition's on point, your recovery, your sleep, all that stuff is on point as well, you should be able to notice some incredible strength gains from the start of the routine to the end of the routine, and then hopefully that will transition over a long period of time to some increased muscle mass. Something else I want to note at the very end of Smolov Jr., if you're just feeling really blasted and really tired, which is not unusual, you can take a deload week. A deload week would basically just be where you where you do your traditional exercise routine. So you skip out on Smolov, you're done with Smolov. Go back to what you were doing before, but maybe you just decrease the amount of volume you're doing. So you can decrease the amount of weight you're using by, about 30% or so. You can decrease the number of reps, maybe take off a set or two. And it's a way to still get in the gym, still exercise. It's active recovery, as they say. So you're still lifting, you're still exercising, but you're not going as intense. You're letting your body recuperate and recover after going through that long stretch of those 3 solid, tough weeks of lifting every other day. And you're giving your body a chance to rest and recover before you get back after your other regular routine. Thanks for checking out the video, and I appreciate you checking out my channel. If this video was helpful for you, I would appreciate it if you'd give it a like and subscribe down below. And I will catch you guys next time. Make sure you're still lifting with intensity and getting after it. Make those gains.